Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to the Model Railway Replacement Podcast, or as we like to call it, MERP. It's episode 4. It's been going longer than most of my lifetime relationships. And with me is
Sam. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. I have been away this week, so my usual hobby stuff hasn't been as fluent as I usually would be doing. But I've had a break. I've had a relax, and I got to go to Legoland, Alton Towers, Leeds, where I got to play trains for a little bit. So there has been some fun stuff going in life, but not necessarily as much hobby as I'd usually have. How about you? You've been up to much?
Yeah, I've had a week off work because it was the school holidays. So went to the Gloucestershire and Warwickshire Railway. It's always a lovely little railway to visit, and went up and down the line there. Behind a couple of Great Western steam engines. So that was all very enjoyable. And then been utilising the time when the kids haven't been harassing me by working on the layout. So, as I know you were very jealous about when I did a video,
Yeah, I was.
and saw that
Everything that you said in that video just completely like drained from me because I was like, why have you got trains running and I haven't? And I was very happy for you, but at the same time, I was so incredibly sad.
yes, I had some trains moving on my layout. It was quite the momentous occasion. Also meant I can't get the boy to leave the garage now. He's just locked in here, just running trains up and down the fiddle yard. So I was quite happy with that. It's the first stage in the layout building sort of done, and then I've been in the corner trying to sort out my point motors for the route setting. So I've tried using a diode matrix. So I only have to press one button for each road rather than setting the points individually. But unfortunately, something's not quite working. My diode matrix is, which I was quite pleased about because I tested it with an LED and the correct LED lit when the correct button was pressed. All the point motors work when they're tested individually, but when I try to fire them all together, they won't go. So I'm thinking my capacitor discharge unit hasn't got enough oomph to get them going. So mostly a victory, but still a long way to go.
No, it sounds like it's progressing much quicker than mine is, but I mean, the ability to run trains is great, and I assume you've been able to test all of the fiddle yard lanes for having a train running up and down them, not just the backwards and forwards that you had on the video.
So we've literally, so the points at one end are just sat in place. They're not down. The points on the other end are down. They were only wired up the other day to get trains running on them. So trains can now run out of a road onto a set of points, and that's about as far as it can go at the moment. But we had tested all 10 roads. And I say it was just the boy just got everything out, every model he could find and get his hands on. So we've got quite the collection out on the field yard at the moment. There's a West Coast 57, a Transpennine 68. The combination I'm quite liking that he put together, and it's never happened in real life, but it looks absolutely fabulous. I'm staring at it right now. Is the National Power Class 59 coupled up to a Somerset and Dorset 7F with a couple of London Brighton four-wheel coaches. Absolutely mad combo, but it looks mad.
I was like trying to picture it in my head. I was like, that sounds absolutely bonkers, but at the same time, I mean, anything goes, isn't it? I mean,
It's anything. The colours, it's just the colours. I'll have to take a photo and put it on Instagram because yeah, I really like what he's done. And then yeah, he's got a Transpennine 68 at the other end. So it's yeah, hell of a combo. So yes, we've been having we've been having fun just testing the layout. And the important thing is that the fiddle yard is pretty much there, which means I can now go round and start working on the scenic side. So hoping we should have some loops not too far away and actually have some trains running around in circles.
that was going to be my next question is because me as a person when when I built my layout, my main obsession was I wanted a loop. Like I could sort points out and stuff like that later. Like, but I needed a loop to run trains around, and then I could build everything else on that. So, is that something that you're going to do? Or do you think you're going to build it in sections as you go round, or what's the plan, James?
Yeah, I've got an idea in my head how to do it. So yeah, it's the fiddle yard first, because that's always where I've fallen down before, where I start on the scenic side first and get really excited about it and great, I'm building a layout. Come to the fiddle yard and it's just so boring and dull because it's just lots and lots of track that needs wiring up and laying, putting together, and there's nothing really exciting about it. It's just a fiddle yard. So I thought, no, what, I'm do the fiddle yard first, get that out of the way, and then I've got the scenic section to look forward to, and the knowledge that once I've built the loops on the scenic section, my fiddle yard's done, and I've actually will have a working layout, and I can then progress with other bits. So the intention is to have a junction about halfway around the loop, so the lines will split, and there'll be what will be the East Coast main line will be like the main loops going round, and then a Transpennine style route will then branch off and weave its way around the edge of the baseboards until it tucks underneath to a reverse loop and some other storage sidings underneath the baseboard. That's the plan anyway.
Nice. Okay, that sounds positive. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for update videos and stuff like that, or private update videos is even better because then I can lord it over everyone else that I'm seeing it before anyone else.
There should be one soon actually, because of where I've got with the video. I think I will put a video together because I've got quite a bit of footage and it's spread over several weeks. And the trouble when I do that is I can't remember what I've recorded and what I've said and what I need. So I need to put a video together. So yeah, I've done that. That's pretty much been my modelling. Yeah, and a bit of TT temptation. I know I said I've given up on it, but I've had a thought about a layout. So the train set that was in the sale pile has crept out with an eye. But we'll see about that. So yes, so that has my modelling for the week. It's been quite a good week for it.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, all is well.
Good. I obviously didn't get any proper hobbying done. I did, however, my brother-in-law is also um is also into model railways. He has a 3-track loop up in his loft. And I was very excited that I was able to take 2 big trains away with me, knowing that I could take them up in his loft. So, Richard, if you're listening, thank you very much, very appreciated. I don't think you realised how happy it made me being able to actually run some of my trains round a layout. And I know people have commented and said, "Oh, what about your local model railway club?" It's like, yeah, that's fine. I could do that, but by the time evening comes around, I don't want to go somewhere else. Whereas I was already in his house, so it was very easy for me to to basically go up into his loft, play trains, and we just talk trains whilst like stuff was going around and stuff like that. And it was a very enjoyable experience. Sitting drinking a cup of coffee whilst chatting trains with someone and watching your trains go around the layout. So very appreciative of that.
I'm very envious of that because my brother-in-law. I mean, my brother-in-law, he likes comics and I like comics, so we can talk about that. But yeah, I'd love to have a brother-in-law that's into trains and has a layout, and I can go around and use this layout to test my train. So I'm very envious of that. And so later in the show, we have been talking a lot about Sam, and we thought, well, we'll talk about him a bit more. So a couple of episodes ago, we did my questions, asking me basically my hobby history. So this episode, we're going to ask Sam. But before we do that, we just thought we'd just cover the latest news stories. And this one's come as a bit of a surprise. Bachmann revealed at the Staffold Barn Model Railway event over the weekend that they are not only making new models, but essentially have brought out a brand new gauge. And this is NG7. It's narrow gauge in O gauge modeling, but it's called NG7 because it's slightly larger than the standard 16.5 millimeter modeling that most, I think, we'll say scratch builders and kit builders, I think this is the first ready to run, is out there. So I was quite impressed with this new range. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. I'd seen the announcement. I'd seen the posts and the videos and stuff. And just before we logged on to record tonight, I quickly watched the announcement because I was away. I didn't necessarily have the time to
Yeah.
sit and watch the full thing. And oh my god! So a rough idea for anyone who's at home and hasn't seen this. Um, and James will back me up because he's the 009 modeler here. So you can run a 009 model on N gauge track,
Yes.
even though you can buy 009 track. You can run, and I think it's 16.5 mil is the type of track it can run on, but it is the equivalent of you can run these new O gauge narrow gauge models on double O gauge track, which I think is fantastic because think of the hobbyists who are most people do double O gauge. And if you're looking to get into this, well, there's a perfect way to get into it by at least buying a piece of track that you already probably have just to test the locos out. But oh my God, James, they look so beautiful. I think this, if anybody wanted to get into the O gauge sort of size of things, I think this is definitely a very nice model.
Yes, yeah, I was thinking that. I was considering our conversation last week about the temptations of the Daypal '08 in the sale.
Mm-hmm.
I felt Bachmann were just trying to lure me in even more by presenting these absolutely stunning looking models. And they look absolutely great. So they're starting off with the Quarry Hunslets, and there's various versions of them. And to go with it, there's a few Scenecraft buildings. There's like a shed and a coal store and water tower. And I think they just upgraded, or so I say, larger versions of what they've previously done in 009. They look absolutely fantastic. And there's a few wagons to go with as well. So there's a whole range that they've announced. Yeah, I was really impressed, and it's definitely very tempting what you can get there. And I think it will be quite a great scale because it's probably the same as what 009 was. A lot of people didn't model in 009 because they're put off by the fact that you needed to either scratch build or kit build your own locos, and not everyone has the confidence of that. And then Bachmann bought out the 009 and the 009 market. It grew quite a lot. I mean, I know I went into it because of that. I'd had tempted before in kit built locos, but I could never find the right chassis for them, and that was always the biggest problem in 009. And I think this might be the same for NG7. It's a case of tempting people that weren't confident enough to build their own locos, and you can now model in O gauge in a smaller space than what standard O would take up. So yeah, I think it'd be quite interesting to see where this goes.
Here's my big question. How much do you think a loco is going to be?
And I see, I was wondering that, especially in the moment when I said about the cheap Daypal '08, and I bet the Daypal '08 will still be cheaper.
Yeah, I think it
What
will.
it's got. I mean, their 009 loco, some of them reach nearly £200, don't they? So
Mhm.
it's a bit fatter. It'd probably be about the same, probably around £200 mark, I reckon.
Yeah, I
But
think 200 is a safe bet, and then you'd be looking at maybe 300, maybe 350 sort of top mark for the. Um, I, I mean, without having a side by side comparison of it, do you think it's about the same sort of size as a Class '08, or are we talking it's much bigger?
what I've done like a 0008.
Yeah, sorry, a 0008.
Yeah. It was quite difficult to gauge, but yeah, probably around that size. Yeah, it's probably like tank, yeah, an OO gauge tank engine size, probably a bit taller,
Mm,
but probably about the same length, I reckon. And probably more suitable for going around like radius one curves, maybe even tighter depending on the wheelbase.
mm.
But yeah, definitely an interesting project, and I wish Bachmann good luck on it.
Yeah, I'm. It's not often that I see something that's out of my usual gauge comfort zone and go, oh, I'm really interested. But this is kind of because even with 009, I was interested mainly because it could go with my 00 gauge stuff. But
Yeah.
this is this is big. I think this is going to be something really, really special. And I think if you looked at the Dapol O gauge shunter and this, I mean, if you think you could pick up two locos for that gauge for, let's say, £350 for two O gauge locos, I mean, that could be a really good start, especially if you had like a little Class 8 shunter and the narrow gauge just sort of going off each other as a little diorama. I mean, it would be beautiful, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got worse temptation because I was in the local model shop in Brackley, A&H Models, and he had a LNER Sentinel in there, unboxed, £95. That 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 was. I was like, for an O gauge model, that's really, really. I had to walk out because money almost parted. Oh,
Ooh, so
yeah. I think at this rate, by the end of the year, there'll be a no gauge model in my possession, won't there? It's too much
I
temptation.
I think you're going to be able to get a lot of character in a very short, small space. I think.
I think they'll suit for like a nice shelf layout. Like those IKEA shelves that people build on.
Hmm.
You can get like 6 foot long ones and stuff like that. I bet you could build a really nice sort of um, wharf, something like that, where the slate wagons are being shunted around, being ready to be unloaded. See, I'm already thinking of ideas to tempt myself.
I'm currently looking at my desk and I'm thinking, I reckon the N7 model, I reckon you'd be able to easily fit it on a 2x4.
Yeah, I think
And
probably.
yeah, I think if
Like,
you could get the tight enough radius on it, I think you could easily fit a nice little loop that just goes round and round on a really nice scenic section. I think you could do that easy.
you could. I think we need to stop talking about this before we talk ourselves into temptation and have a good old chat about you. So let's take a
Oh,
break and ask you some questions.
Look at that! You see that there? The super shiny diesel loco that's coming this way. Yeah, I see it. Isn't it beautiful? So fresh, so clean, like it's straight out of the box. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I prefer it to have a used look to it. In an ideal world, that would be nice. But I'm sure the owner doesn't have the confidence, skill, or time to undertake such a job. Then why don't they just send it to Emperor's Path? Emperor's Path? Yeah. SBJ has years of experience in model railways and wargaming, the ability to meet your weathering needs, and works with you during the whole process to ensure the project is how you want it, not like it's come through a factory. Come on, that must cost a fortune. Not really. He offers different levels of weathering at really affordable prices. I've got my whole fleet weathered by him. My loco's got the full treatment, whilst my rolling stock just a dusting with the airbrush, and it looks really authentic. I might just get a quote. How do I contact him? You get him on Instagram at emperors_path, by Facebook, Emperor's Path, or emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not filthy, let's change that.
So this week we are doing our what we like to hopefully make a common feature of the show, and that is our 11 questions. It is 11, right?
it is 11, it's still 11.
Still 11. Excellent stuff. So, yes, our 11 questions that we'd like to ask modelers. And as you know from previous episode, I was sat in the hot seat and had the questions fired at me. And this time it's Sam's turn. So, Sam, welcome to the show. I'm sure
Oh,
you're glad to be here.
I'm thrilled to be here. The seat is comfy, the tea is warm. I'm ready.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. So, anyone listening that does know you will probably know you as the name Emperor's Path. You are of Instagram and YouTube fame. You've done modeling not just with layouts but with wargaming as well, and your expertise in weathering is very well known, so much that you actually do it on a commissioning basis. um, I love your layout. I know you've got a new project on the way, and I think it's a great way to start with the first question of, are you a steam, electric, or diesel man? And I think I know the answer.
Very much so. Right here, right now, I can honestly say I'm an electric man. However, diesels come in such a close second. I wouldn't be able to have just electrics and just diesels. I love both of them, but
Well, I'm sorry, but you set the rules for this question. You have to have one. So
you caught me out. Let's go with electrics.
electrics. I thought it would be. Yeah, I noticed your fond love of the slam door sets, which I actually have. I don't know why. Strange fond memories of them. I very rarely went on them. It was only if you went sort of towards Brighton, you had to change off the usual 319s to go on them. But I can see their appeal.
I think the thing as well, like Portsmouth especially, we by the time that I was born and have memory of Portsmouth with trains, it was
Yeah,
only electric units. So we never had, there were diesel driven locos, but they were so few and far between that it wasn't something that I ever really saw. So I think I grew up with electrics and I've just got this fascination with all the stuff I remember riding as a child. But I love all the diesels, but I think the nostalgia part for me is that there's just, I just, the South Coast has always been very much an electric third rail place. And
yeah.
I think you couldn't argue that Southampton to Chichester down to Brighton, the South Coast is third rail electric, and that is predominantly what you see and saw in this particular area.
I think that's what it comes down to. Then, David, I think most people, if we ask this question, it will be an answer that is quite nostalgic. But I'm sure there'll be the odd one that sort of moves away from the norm. But yeah, totally understandable. So we'll move on to question number two then. What is your favourite scale?
I'm going to be really boring on this one because, unlike yourself, who has modelled in various scales, I have only ever modelled in double O gauge. So I'm going to stick with double O gauge. It's a boring answer because I've never tried any other gauge, I'm afraid.
That's fair. Didn't you try to do 009 at one point, do I recall? So was that a failed attempt?
I'd started planning. God, I went really Pomponian then. I started planning. So I ordered a 009 loco with my birthday money, and I was like really, really excited. And then it just got lost in the post with Royal Mail, and it just took so long to get it sorted. The person I bought it from was being really aggy with me, despite the fact that I was like, look, they've even admitted it's lost. It's not like they've said they've delivered it and I'm saying they haven't. And it just
Yeah.
put me off. Like by the time that it got sorted, I was like, I don't want to do 009 now. So
No, no, that's a shame.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I don't, it's a
it's a
great scale, and I wouldn't
yeah.
let the Royal Mail spoil it for you.
It is a beautiful scale, and I'm sure one day I will get into it because I like the idea that you can fit so much in such a small space with it. And
Yeah.
it is. I think when I first got back into the hobby in 2012, it was a thing, but it wasn't a big thing. It was still a promise at the time of having like the ready to run models of it. And then
I think the Baldwin, off the top of my head, probably came 2 years later. I think it was about 2014 as the first ready to run commercial model.
hmm. And the thing
Which
is I really loved the 009 locos. They're all basically based on the small little engine series from Thomas. Peter Sam being my absolute favorite, but I do love the Quarry Hunslets and all the sort of the ones like that. And I was just none of them ever had a ready to run model until now, and even now they're still not
yeah,
as available as I'd like them to be.
no, yeah. I mean, even with the Talaclin locos, obviously you'll have to buy a Thomas engine and deface it. Um, and but it's I think actually Bachmann are going to be doing the Scar Lowy as Talaclin with a smokebox door. I think that comes out this year, so
Okay.
maybe that's one to look out for.
I'm sure there was a pre-order for the Peter Sam-esque model, and then I don't know what happened to it because that was about year and a half ago, and I got really excited about it, and then I haven't seen anything since. So,
Well, I've got a Peter Sam. It did come out. I think it sold out quite quick, and then there's quite a few people that do 3D prints to replace the body shell
mm,
on it. It's a very nice model, but they've got Sir Handel and Duncan in the pipework as well coming soon. So I'm quite looking forward to them.
mm.
Um, to the because I will eventually then have the fleet and probably deface them. I haven't decided if I will or not. But I look at their little faces and I think, even though they're the CGI ones. But anyway, this is not about me. This is about you.
I tricked you. I've managed to trick you.
So, because we're talking about locos, what is your favorite loco that you own?
Oh, this is probably the toughest decision. Obviously we sat and wrote these questions, and it's one that I have. This is the one I've struggled the most with thinking about what I'd put, and it goes between the Class 47 Royal Mail in
Yeah.
Intercity Executive, because it is in essence it is the first ever loco I owned, albeit except for the fact that it is the newer Bachmann version of it, but it is same livery, same style.
Yeah.
However, I think I'm going to have to say that my Bachmann Class 411, the forcep, which is an electric unit, they used to run in Portsmouth. I did a conversion last year where I converted one to be the refurbished model. So it was my first deviation into using sort of brass etched kits by MJT.
Okay. Is this the one where you have to move the guards compartment on it and that's not the refitting it had?
Yeah, basically the Bachmann model originally, go back a year when it wasn't available. The Bachmann model used to have it where the guard compartments were at either end of the locos or
Yeah.
at the forecar. So you had it where the drivers sat. And then in the late 80s, it changed where they added extra seating in those parts and moved the guards compartment to one of the middle coaches. So it
Yeah.
had a bigger guards compartment in one area. And Bachmann didn't do that refurbished version of it. So I was like, well, I had enough people comment on one repaint I did. So I rebuilt it using a brass kit. And it is really good and it is lovely. But the Bachmann sides just put every brass kit to shame. And I think it's just one of those things. I'm going to say that is my favorite one. It's in Southwest Trains livery. I put so much time and effort into that kit and I love running it around the layout because it just reminds me of my childhood. I'm sticking with that. That is my favorite loco that I own.
But yeah, I thought it might be your answer might be something like that, one of your electric units. And it's interesting that you've sort of gone for a similar theme that I did with the it's a model that you worked on and you put your hard work and effort in. And so therefore that it has I think a bit more meaning to you and
Mm,
that's why it's your favorite.
yeah.
So thank you for that. Right then. The next question, as you know, is what is your favorite loco you don't own? And as in something that may not exist yet, or something that you have seen and thought, I really wish I could purchase that.
It's a very
The
different.
last question
It's.
was the hardest, but this sounds like it's the hardest.
I think it's because I thought I had an answer for it, and then when you asked the question, about 7,000 different things popped around in my head. Um, I would. I think what I would love to see is I would love to see far more multiple unit models out there than there currently are. There is a massive section of. I'm biased because I'm a Southern boy, and
Hmm.
so many third rail multiple unit locos that run round that just aren't represented. I think if I had to pick it, it'd be a 455, which is, if you've been on Instagram and anything recently, you'll know that that's the unit that was just recently repainted by Southwest Trains or Southwestern Railways into the BR blue and grey again. And it looks absolutely fantastic in the BR blue and grey. And it's a really nice sort of throwback. I'd love the whole throwback liveries that they've been doing recently on the railways. It's a really nice touch. And
Yeah.
I think no matter what livery that comes in, it is a beautiful loco. It's a four-car unit, multiple unit, very similar. I'm going to get told off. Sorry, Dan.
That's all right. If you listened to last week, you should know how to comment, right?
It's effectively so the Class 150, the two-car diesel multiple unit, which you often see in GWR colours or regional railways and stuff like that. It is
Yeah.
effectively a four-car version of that, but an electric version. That's the best way I can describe it for those who don't know what it is. And I'm planning an easy way of trying to make one of those in my fleet. It's far on the back burner, but I think we need more ready to run electric multiple units. And I think the 455 would be a beautiful candidate, especially considering how much the new repainted version has been on Instagram.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. I know lots of Southern modelers always cry out for more third rail electric, and it does seem a very neglected market. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of them in the future. The one that surprises me is the 377. It seems so common.
Oh God.
I
Or
just
anything that's remotely like it. It's a little bit one of those. It
yeah,
is,
anything from I think they're the Electro Star family, aren't they? And
yeah.
anything from there, I'm really surprised I haven't seen anything. But maybe it's just because of the cost
Mm.
of how much a four car train would cost you these days. I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
But
I think that's probably certainly high on the list. But I mean, I guess if people like we said in last week's episode, people vote with their wallets. But
yeah,
then I
yeah,
don't know
it
how
didn't.
well the Hornby 4 Veps have sold, so we'll see.
I'm surprised they didn't do the retooled in Network Southeast. That always surprised me, and they didn't announce it this year either. I always thought it was a bit curious, but it seems that they sold quite well. I haven't seen too many websites offering them off in bargain, so maybe they did all right. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just time will tell, I suppose.
time will tell. But yeah, 455 4K unit. I honestly I would accept in any livery. That's one of the few things that I can say about that loco looks fantastic in any livery. So
Excellent. What is your favorite project you have undertaken so far? And for you, that could be anything really. I mean, particularly when it comes to painting, you tend to do a hell of a lot of painting projects. So we could be here for some time, maybe.
um there's I have a special place in my heart for the Southwest Train one I did, which I mentioned earlier. It's obviously my favorite loco.
Hmm.
However, I'm going to say, and there's many reasons as to why this is my favorite project. And one of them is I think it gave me it was the first big project I did, the first big repaint project on a loco that I ever did in the hobby. It certainly got me, I'm going to use quotation marks for noticed. And it is one of the locos that famously people know about. And it is the Class 37 that I did with Network Southeast livery on it. So it's a livery that didn't exist. Um, but I just feel it was an absolute shame that the 37 never came in Network Southeast livery. So I painted one up, and it's even got its own personalized brass stitch nameplate of Emperor's Path on it as well.
Oh, all right. I didn't realize you named it. I
Yeah.
do like that logo. I know exactly what one you're talking about, and I absolutely agree that it is such a shame that 37 didn't end up in Network Southeast livery because they were hired in every now and again, I think, on the West of England line to cover for the Paling 50s or 47s. But yeah, but
Mm.
if Network Southeast had managed to just borrow one for a few months and give it a repaint, that would have been great. But
Yeah.
alternative timelines and all that.
Maybe one day. I think the thing is this particular area of the world was 33s and 73s were very much the kings of the traction here. The
Yeah.
47s and the 50s sort of did the long haul thing. So they may have started in Portsmouth or finished in Portsmouth, but they didn't necessarily like venture here for much, whereas the 73s and the 33s were definitely the kings of the southern region.
I do like that 37. It's a controversial one, and I know there's purists out there. But again, that brings us back to last week's subject of, it's again, it's what the modeler likes, and there's no need to be rude about it. There's you can just be polite, and if you don't like it, walk away,
Mm,
sort of thing. But if you don't like that, what's wrong with you? I think it looks absolutely fantastic, even if it didn't exist.
thank you.
But as you say, you never know. I mean, Severn Valley Railway painted a Class 50 in load haul livery once. Um, I think it's in intercity livery now.
Oh, which is even better. I was about to say, wasn't there also an intercity one? And it's beautiful.
So, what is your next hobby purchase? I think you may have mentioned this last week, actually.
I think I did. And unless something changes, it's exactly the same as yourself. Because as it happens, both you and I are both building fiddle yards at the same time. Um, I'm very interested in the MTP MP1 point motor. I've seen a couple of people use them to great effect, and I can get a very good deal at my local model shop by
Oh,
purchasing them. So it was sort of like the nail in the coffin when they were like, "Well, we can do it for this much if you buy this many." I was like, "Sold." The
excellent. Excellent. So those are your next hobby purchases. I think it's quite interesting. We are both working on fiddle yards at the moment. I think we keep hinting that this will be a topic for the podcast. It could be the elusive topic that never comes, but we do want to talk about fiddle yards in the future, mostly because I feel it's a neglected subject.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's one of those things, I don't know if you feel the same, but when you're reading model railway magazines, everyone talks about how they built their layout and all the scenic side and the baseboards and all that. And no one ever tells you what their fiddle yard is and how it works, and I was like, oh, some of them look quite interesting from what you can sort of get glimpses of.
Hmm.
So I'm hopefully that'll be an interesting subject for people to listen to, but
I
it could be Dulles Ditch War. We might just drop it, but
I think it's also you don't have the conversation. One of the beauties of doing a podcast like this is you don't have the back and forth that you might get with some people. So whilst there are fantastic episodes on YouTube of how X YouTuber and Y YouTuber built their fiddle yards, you don't get to see them sort of talk together and say, here's what I did that I would have changed. Here's what I like about yours. Here's what I hate about mine now that it's built. Here's what I want to do on my next one. And that's the joy of having a podcast is you can actually talk about these things and say, when I built my first fiddle yard, here's what I did and I would change that, but here's what I'd stick to. And I think that's why this sort of conversation back and forth thing on a podcast would work fantastic. So yeah, I think fiddle yard is definitely something that you and your co-host definitely need to talk about in the future. I think it would be an awful shame if it's not a topic.
indeed, indeed, excellent stuff. I know you love airbrushing. I know you love weathering, but I'm gonna have to ask this question because you might just surprise us all. What is your favorite part of the hobby?
I'm really sorry. I'm going to let you down. Nothing about this is going to be a surprise. I love weathering. I think I
Knew
think
it.
weathering just completely changes how a model and a layout and everything can look. I'm not saying that factory models are bad or anything like that. I just think there's something beautiful about something so disgustingly filthy. Um, I'm obviously widely known as being someone who weathers on the heavier side of things.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's it's nice to a certain degree. Like often get tagged by people in pictures where the weathering on a real life loco is disgusting, and they say, "Oh, did Emperor's Path do this?" And it's and I find it funny because I know people are saying it in jest. Um, and I get it. One of my like closest hobby friends down here questions my weathering. It's like, why do you do it so heavy? Like, slam doors don't look that disgusting. And I send the same YouTube video link. There is a fantastic video, um, which was filmed in Portsmouth and Southsea train station in the very early 90s. I think it was winter, so take that into consideration. And it's just one of the best contrasts of the type of weathering that you can do on the Southern network with various different bits. You've got clean multiple units, dirty multiple units, filthy multiple units. There's a fantastic reference in this video where you have Class 50 Royal Oak bringing in, coming in and waiting just outside of the ascent to the upper platform of the station, and it's disgusting. Like when people try and tell me the locos wouldn't have been that dirty, I reference this video because of how filthy Royal Oak is. And then comes past Royal Oak is a Class 73 Battle of Britain, comes in immaculate, absolutely beautifully clean. The coaches look dirty compared to Battle of Britain. That goes off down to Portsmouth Harbour, to which Royal Oak then follows it and goes and connects up to the train and takes it down to Plymouth, Weymouth. It goes somewhere west, where they didn't have much third rail at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas the 73 has just brought it all from Brighton. So it was one of their like big excursions where they swapped over trains halfway through. You had the 73 because of all of the third rail, but the fact that it could run on a diesel if it needed to. And then the 50 sort of follows it down. And then you see the 50 bring in the coach drawn train and going off. And the comparison of how Battle of Britain was really clean compared to the coaches, whereas Royal Oak is disgusting compared to the coaches on the sort of as it goes out. And it's just a very, very great video. So if anybody wants a copy of this video, I'll happily give the link out for it.
I knew exactly which video you were talking about because I've watched that and I really, really did enjoy that video. And yeah, I can, and yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a various shades of grey and brown on those coaches in that video. I'm, I got a feeling it's something to do with like one of the carriage washes is broken in one in the area or something like that, if I recall. Not
I
sure. I
mean,
may have read that in a comment or something, but
that sounds like Bratton.
yeah, it seems. I don't know. I could have just made that up, but
I'm gonna have to go back and check the comments now because it could legitimately. I think the thing is it's home as well. It is very much where I live, where I've grown up. I
yeah,
used to catch trains from there when I was younger. 92 is about the time when I was absolutely full blown into trains, Thomas the Tank Engine. If we had the idea of going on a train anywhere, my dad used to take me to Chichester, sort of like on a Saturday. Um, like we have all these like wonderful things, and it's the nostalgia of it, but it's just the fact I can sit there, watch that video, and go, this ran in the area that not only do I model, but it's also the area where I live. Um, and it's that nice mix of diesel and electrics and stuff like that that I can
yeah.
just see in one video, knowing that at the time I was alive, these things ran. And I think that's really important to me. And like I said, I got so much inspiration for weathering diesels and stuff. The Class 50 Glorious uh, loco that I got from you, um, I weathered it based on this video because of how disgusting and filthy Royal Oak was in that video. So yeah, weathering is my favorite part of the hobby. I'm very passionate about it. And small plug, when I work with customers, I do try and work with what they want. So if they want it on the lighter side of things, I do lighter weathering. But for me, I love some of the dirty, filthy, grimy parts of weathering as part of the hobby.
That's understandable. The weathering I really enjoy is the really rundown sort of 1967, 1968 remaining steam locos that are just completely unloved.
Mm.
Um, Weathering a loco like that is so satisfying because like you say, you take that shiny model, and then by the end of it, it's just absolutely caked in dirt, and that is the only way that you can ever take a photo of a model and convince people that it's real.
Mhm.
Um, and the only way you can do that is by weathering it, because if it's not weathered, it's instantly recognizable that it is not, um, you know, and the real thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you there, obviously, because that was my answer.
I think
Awesome
what's
stuff.
what's great about weathering as well is you don't need a layout to weather. You can
No,
still appreciate what you're doing at a desk. And if you get the chance to run it on your layout, someone else's layout, you can appreciate it even more. But you can sit and do that at a desk, and you don't need a 20-foot by 40-foot layout to be able to appreciate it. I think that's one of the best things about weathering.
oh
And
yeah,
you can start with such little things to make it work, and then you can develop and buy an expensive airbrush and use hundreds of oil paints to create loads of these different techniques and stuff. So I think that's why weathering is so good.
yeah, absolutely agree with you there. Right then. So the next question, if you were to create a new layout, and I know that you are creating a new layout, so should be an answer here, I hope. What is the one thing you need on it?
I feel like your questions that you gave for your interview, there was some real shockers in there. I feel like mine is predictable. Sam likes peanut butter on toast kind of answers. Um, so for me, my promise to myself when designing the new layout was the one thing I had to have was a decent fiddle yard. I have a lot of locos and I have a lot of rolling stock. And one of the regrets about the previous layout is that the fiddle yard, when I first built it, was an afterthought. It wasn't until 2 years into having the layout that I went, I'm going to need to build a better fiddle yard, or even a year into the layout, I can't remember. I'm going to need a
Hmm.
better fiddle yard. So I went from having no fiddle yard to having the 4 lines on each main line that I had. And even then, I was like, it's not enough. I need more. Um, and that was with me being able to run like a loco and 5 coaches was pretty much the longest train that I could get per
Yeah.
line. Um, and it was the one thing I'd love loads of different things. I'd love a station. I'd love a really beautiful scenic piece. I'd love to have a small yard where if I ever decide that I was suddenly getting into the idea of shunting and stuff, I'd do that. But unfortunately, the one thing I really, really think is essential for me personally in my new layout would be a bigger fiddle yard, which means longer trains and more lines to store those trains on as well. So I've already effectively started that because I've gone from five coach, let's say we're talking coaches, which are about 30 centimeters. So I've gone from a 5 coach fiddle yard to a 9 coach fiddle yard per line. And that was like my big thing that I wanted to do, and I've achieved it. I just need to get it into a loft where I then can actually run stuff from it. That's the next step.
That's great. No, that's interesting because that's exactly my thought process and building my layout, and I think that's probably why we are both at the fiddle yard stage because I totally agree. The fiddle yard is so important, and I know there's people out there that don't have fiddle yards. And they're quite happy to have the hand of God switch things over. Underground Eric, he springs to mind. I know he said he's not bothered about the fiddle yard. He doesn't mind. He'll just switch his trains over. But yeah, for me, I'm exactly the same. I think the fiddle yard is like the most important part of the planning stage because if you fail on that, the whole layout will just fall apart around it because it won't work the way you want it to work. Because you have in your head how you want the scenic section to be and all these various trains going through, but those trains won't run through there or do what you want to do if you haven't got the proper storage facility for them behind. So yeah, that's an excellent answer. I think I'm probably want people out there would agree with. So yeah, no, thank you for that.
I think also the idea of okay, so if you don't want a fiddle yard, you're going to build a shelf to store all your stuff on. By the time you've built a shelf, that's a fiddle yard. A fiddle yard is just a giant shelf. The difference is that it's got track and stuff so that that shelf allows it to go from the shelf onto your layout and back again.
That's very true. Yeah.
That's how I
Unless you
look
get
at it
one of
anyway.
those fancy, I don't know if you've ever seen them. There's like I think they're called Elevation. I think they might be the company. They're doing main gauge. They do an O gauge, OO gauge one as well. But yeah, it's like a lift style fiddle yard. I'm trying to do the hand motion here. Hope that people can see what I'm talking about.
I'm intrigued. You're gonna after we finish recording, you're gonna have to send me this because it sounds amazing.
I think they're called Innovation or something like that. They definitely do one in N-gauge, and I think they do a smaller version in OO, but I think it only holds like 5 coach trains or something like that maximum. Um, but yeah, they look quite cool. I think I've seen one layout use it on the exhibition circuit. It's just I don't know if the timing of waiting for it to go up and down helps with the keeping the crowd entertained, but it looks like a very delicate operation. Cool. Right. What is the one hobby item you'd encourage everyone to buy? I was going to say you're not allowed to say airbrush.
You can say that because that makes it a little bit easier for me to not say airbrush because that is what I would say. Oh, actually, now that I say that, that's extremely difficult. Okay, so I'm not allowed to say airbrush. So I'm going to go for the next best thing, in my opinion. Now, some people have seen me use this and I've asked what it is. And I think of any link I have ever posted more than once, this is the one. And it's the Tamiya model stand that I use. And it's basically a little mini Lazy Susan. So it's a spinny thing that allows you to put body shells of your trains and stuff. So I obviously do a lot of painting, repainting, weathering, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And something that genuinely helps me to not touch something I am trying to weather over and over again is this little stand. So it comes as like a little Lazy Susan one that you can get where you can just put stuff on, you can blue tack it, you can clip it in, but there's an attachment that comes in the box and I'm holding it in my hand right now, and it basically looks like a weird coat hanger that's upside down, and it allows you to, if you take a body shell off a coach or a loco, predominantly like a diesel or something like that, it has these two little wire armatures that can compress down, and you can pop them inside, and then they sort of spring out again to hold the body shell on. And it is a fantastic piece of kit for me because when I'm working on something, I can pick it up and I can just turn it round over and over again. So if I'm working, I'm trying to work out whether I've weathered one side too much or one side not enough, or does this need more yellow? Does this need less yellow? Does it need to be lighter, darker? Things like that. And I can just sort of do my little bit on one side, Lazy Susan, spin it round, and then work on it. And I think at the time of recording, it was about £15 on Amazon. And it is by far the best hobby item I own, second to airbrush.
Excellent, excellent. I know that actually sounds like a very, very good, useful tool. Um, and I have a little turntable that I use, but it needs WD-40 in every so often because it's very, very tight and squeaky. Yes, I did wander into that area of difficulty of when I first started weathering of, oh, I can't turn it round because it's wet. So, so that does sound like an excellent tool, very useful, and a good price as well, and from Amazon, so it's easily obtainable for all those that don't object to Amazon taking over the world and destroying small businesses.
I think the thing is whenever I give a price, it's easiest just to go to Amazon. But it's Tamiya, so it is a well-known hobby brand. They do fantastic paints. They do fantastic masking tape, which I use for masking up repaints and things like that. But Tamiya, really good brand. You can buy this little armature, and it is well worth every penny.
Excellent stuff. Right then. So, next one is favorite exhibition and layout. And I'll say with this one, with layout, I think we covered it with my questions, but it doesn't have to be at the exhibition. It could be someone's layout on YouTube, Instagram, anywhere that you've just seen and you thought that's really inspirational. I absolutely love it. Could even be Pendon Museum if you want it to be.
Okay. So exhibition, I am not as well traveled as some others, so I don't actually go to many exhibitions, and I'm going to probably offend some of my close hobby friends by not saying their exhibitions. But I am going to say one exhibition solely because of who I get to see when I go there. And this is going to be really mushy, and this will prove whether they listen to the show or not. The last 3 years, I have gone to the Southampton Model Railway exhibition. The reason I go to the Southampton Model Railway exhibition is because it is almost halfway between Weymouth and Portsmouth. And one of my very first hobby friends within the train world was a little gentleman called Dibs Shunting Layout, or Dibley. And it's now become a thing where we've been 3 years on the trot. I love going. I'm really bad at looking at the layouts there because I have so much fun just talking to Dib that it's an absolute outstanding. It's just a really nice day. So my exhibition isn't because of necessarily the exhibition, but it's because of who I get to see. And model railways is like an additional bit of joy that comes with
Yeah.
it. So that might be a cop out answer, but I am going to say that is still my favorite exhibition. So no
Do you
offense
know
to any
what?
of the local shows.
I really like that answer. I mean that's a really nice answer. And it shows there's more to these exhibitions than just turning up and just staring at a layout for 5 minutes and wandering off to the next one. You know, it's there's a lot more sense of community there. So no, thank you for that answer. I think that's great.
That's
So
okay.
that's your favorite exhibition. What about your favorite layout?
This one was actually surprisingly easy. Folly Lane is my favorite favorite layout. It was at the Portsmouth Model Rail Show in 20, I'm going to say 2021, and I loved it then. I thought it was a fantastic layout. Um, I'm even more happy because recently it has been sold onto Greg Marshall and my friend Martin Cliffco. Sorry, Martin, I've probably butchered your last name. Um, who also are part of Gordon's Lane and Ebsworth Street
Okay.
fame. Um, so now I know that some of my most favourite rolling stock, some of which I've actually painted for them, um, will now have the possibility of running on my also favourite layout. So if you've not seen it before, it's a very, I'm going to use the term simple, try not to offend anyone, very simple, massive station layout with two lines coming in, two lines going out. And it's to service as a run through so you can just see the trains. But as a layout, it's beautiful. I think the attention to detail on it. It was the first ever third rail layout that I ever saw, and I loved it from the second I saw it. So Folly Lane, you have my heart. It is my most favourite layout ever.
Excellent stuff. So I've just quickly Googled it whilst you were talking about it, just because I thought I recognised that name. And the reason I do recognize it is because that layout has recently appeared, and I'm hoping I got this correct. I believe in BRM magazine.
But yeah, it's a fantastic layout, and if you ever get the chance to see it, Greg and Martin, I'm really sorry, they're the two I know the most. I have met the other guys who part own the layout, but I've never been so happy that a layout was being sold, and it was being sold to a fantastic group of people who would look after it. And I know what sort of rolling stock they run, and I think it would look fantastic on that layout. So yeah, Folly Lane.
Can you believe it? We are actually on our very last question. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, but it's the important one. What is your favorite resource? Is it YouTube or is it Instagram?
I'm going to go against the grain here. I think it's Instagram. I loved what you said in yours about how you can pretty much you can search for something and you can find out so much more. I definitely learn more from Instagram, from YouTube. However, I get such good inspiration from Instagram because not only are you getting people who post their stuff, but people who share other people's stuff. And then you've also got people who are filming at exhibitions, such as yourself, and you get to see other people's work through other people. So it means that you start seeing all of these things, and it allows you to start going, oh, I know that layout because that's one that so-and-so did, and stuff like that. And I think Instagram is also such a friendly community in comparison to some of the other toxic communities that you may find out there. It's supportive, and it is one of those from last week we talked about. If you don't like something, don't comment. And I find 9 times out of 10, people don't really comment the negative on your Instagram stuff, and they just sort of walk away and slide past it or swipe past it. I've met a lot of good hobby friends, yourself included, via Instagram, and I am very grateful for how good and supportive a community Instagram is.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand what you're saying about Instagram. It does seem like friendly community, and you're right. I don't think I could probably count on one hand how many negative comments I've got for posts. I mean, I don't post a lot. I don't think I post as much as what you do, but yeah, it's definitely a lot friendlier there, isn't it?
And I think it's definitely a supportive area. I'm guilty on YouTube of sometimes I'm watching stuff on my TV, and if you're watching it on a smart TV, commenting is not as easy as it is as if you're watching it on a computer.
Do you know what? I find I'm apps exactly the same with YouTube in regards to that, because I'll have the telly in the garage and I'll put it on and it'll be playing in the background. And like you say, you go to make a comment, but to make the comment, I have to unlock my phone, go on the app, then tell the app I want to communicate with the TV, and yeah, want to do that, and then put the comment on there. And by the time I've done that, the video has, ended and it's jumped to the next video. And as you found, the comment ends up on the wrong channel. Once commented to you about someone else's channel. Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for answering these questions. And hopefully people out there have enjoyed your answers. I know I have. Well, I think I'll do that for this part of the show. And let's head things out. Okay, we're back. So I'd like to thank Sam for being the willing participant this week. And if you want to be the willing participant of our questions, they're always the same. We haven't changed them. We're lazy like that. Please do get in touch with us via our Instagram accounts. We have I have an email. I sometimes check it. It's Weston_Sigmund@outlook.com. And let us know if you'd like to be part of the show. That's pretty much us wrapped up for today.
This feels like an eternity ago that it happened, and that's because it's almost a week since we got the email. Those of you who don't know, we somehow we managed to hit the top 20 for Apple Podcasts under the category hobbies, and this is why we're gushing a little bit. Whilst we are eternally grateful to most of our listeners come from Spotify. We have a predominant amount of people who listen via Apple Podcasts, and those people managed to get us into the top 20 on Apple Podcasts under hobbies. So it's a massive deal. We didn't get an email about it this week, so sadly I can't say that we did it 2 weeks in a row. But for a brand new podcast getting into the top 20,
I think we're doing all right though, because I was talking to a colleague at work today about it, and basically bullying him into finding our podcast and listening to it. So yeah, he had a little look, and he searched Model Railway, and we are the top result that came through on Spotify when the podcast when he did it. So that was quite pleasing to know. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, it was a good feeling because I see there we are there. So yes, it's just a thank you because obviously without you guys listening, we're kind of wasting our time. Right, that's enough of us rambling, saying our thank yous. I don't think we have anything else to announce at the end of here. And sometimes we get surprise emails, anything like that.
Now that you've said that, that does remind me of something. I do want to say that if you have a show coming up, a model railway show or any sort of model railway event that you would like us to shout out, let us know. And what James and I can do is we can organise a way of, at the end of an episode, saying, here's events that are coming up. We may not necessarily say that the event is coming up when it's 6 months away, but we will hopefully closer to the time say, here's an event that's coming up. Here's a little shout out for it.
Yeah, please do. Because also then that puts that on my radar. And if you are within traveling distance for me, then and I'm not working, it's a good chance I'll be there with my camera to make a video of your show to put on YouTube and narrate over to the annoyance of at least one person out there. So yes, do get in contact with us. There are many ways to do it. If you want to get in contact with Sam, you need to.
You can contact me on Instagram at emperors_path. You can find me on YouTube at Emperors Path. You can also find me on Facebook at Emperors Path. James, how can we get hold of you?
Well, if you want to get hold of me, it's on Instagram as the Western Signalman. I'm on YouTube as the Western Signalman. And with the email I said earlier, it's westernsignalman@outlook.com. And I would like to take this moment to thank all of you that have been finding me on YouTube, because this week I hit 4,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for that. It was very pleasing to see.
That was my little fanfare for you.
I like it. I like it. We'll get done for copyright on that, you know.
Oh, will we?
I don't know.
We missed it last week, and James and I did say that we did want to do it again this week. So to close out the show, we're going to do a little recommendation of a YouTube channel or something that we've watched in the last week or so that we think that you should go and check out. So, James, what's your recommendation for this week?
Right. Well, this one popped up on my YouTube homepage the other day and looked very interesting. And it's a really, really small channel from Australia, Jesse Sim. And he models the LNER in the 1930s. I can't quite remember the bit of the line, but it's the bottleneck on the East Coast after, I think, Welwyn Garden City, where it goes from 4-track to 2-track to go over the viaduct and back to 4.
Oh, okay.
So he's modeled that. There's some absolutely fantastic models on there. He must be well connected because he's got a couple of models that were built by Tony Wright, the modeler. So if you're not aware of Tony Wright, he is a very, very good LNER modeler. He has his layout Grantham. And he pops up on YouTube quite often. I think he may even have his own channel, and he does a lot of articles for the magazines, BRM, etc. So I assume Jesse's very well connected in that way. But yeah, it's I think it had about only 200 subscribers when I looked, but it's definitely worth a look. There is a lot of potential for that layout there. So that is my shout out for the week. It's Jesse Sim, and that's a Juliet Echo Sierra Echo Sim.
Cool. For me, I'm going to tell you that you need to go and check out Scots or Scott Rails. Both James and I going other parts of the world today. And the reason I quite like this, so it is a Scottish gentleman living in Canada, modeling Canadian rail. Really fun channel to watch, quite light-hearted. And the reason I found his channel is because he does a sort of like an opening bridge section for his layout, but he'd use the sort of the slow closing hinges that you get on a lot of like kitchen cupboards now. So like instead of accidentally slamming a kitchen cupboard, you can't do that. And he'd made it so that his little bridge opened and closed so that it would never slam shut. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I've not seen that before. And I just thought it was really interesting. But
that's some impressive engineering.
Yeah, it was. I found it very interesting. But very good videos.
Awesome. That sounds very good. I'll have to go and have a look for that. So that brings us to the end of the show. And I'll say the usual, that hopefully who's been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I've been James, and with me has been Sam. Good night.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.